All right, so we have this fancy little thing called law of cosines. So law of sines is familiar to us because we just did a whole week's worth of work on it. You guys took that nice quiz, which most of you did delightful on, so thank you very much. So we have this new formula. Technically, just like with law of sines, there were like different pieces that you picked depending on what information you have. Kind of same thing goes on here. We have 3 versions of the law of cosines. You're going to see they're all very similar. It just depends kind of what letters you have. So if nothing else, write this down because this is something you will definitely need and you can refer back to. So the first kind of version is a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2 times b times c times cosine of a. So that's my first version. And once again, I'll give you a second once I'm done writing these. And then the other versions are very similar. It's just kind of some of the letters are flipped around depending on what you need. So you're going to see the kind of the same pattern, but different letters. And then last but not least, so I'm going to give you a second to write those, but do write them because it's one of those things that at first it looks torturous. It's really not terrible. You're going to see actually like 90% of it's just putting it in the calculator. So today we'll just be getting used to it, but you don't need to memorize it, but you need to have it somewhere that you can at least refer back to when you need it. So I'll give you a minute if you're writing. Especially at home, I know it takes a little longer to write things. Oh, the list is very small today. That's good. That means people are. It's always a good thing. All right, so we're looking at these and we're like, all right, well, these are just a bunch of formulas. What the heck are they? So I'm going to show you when we would use them. We'll basically do one of each type of problem where we basically use the different formulas. So you can see they're kind of all the same. It just depends what letters you have, but we'll do one of each. And then we'll basically try one on the end and ease our way into it. Obviously, we can make things a little bit more complicated, but we are not going to do that on the first day. So the first day, we'll just focus on one thing, and we'll kind of add to it throughout the week. So feel free, if you have questions along the way, to ask. But here's our first problemo. So sorry, give me 1 second to write it. Okay. So the main thing you want to do, so we talked about law of sines a lot last week. Law of sines would not help us here. This is why we need these other formulas. Because law of sines, I was talking about, you needed like side A and angle A, but see how there are 3 different letters, A, B, C? So law of sines is out. You can't do it. So that's always the issue. It's like, oh man, I kind of like law of sines. Once you get it, it's like you just plug in and you're kind of done. But unfortunately, with this information, it's not going to work. So I'll tell you, use law of cosines. So I'm never going to try to trick you or, I don't know, have you do one thing over the other. I'll always kind of tell you what they need to do. So I'm telling you use law of cosines, but we have these 3 options. The one thing I always look for is what angle do I have? We have angle A. And then look at your options. See how this is the only one that has angle A? So you have to choose the first version. So that's always kind of how I get it. Or you can say I'm finding side A. I'm looking for A. That kind of makes sense as well. But if you kind of base it off the angle, that should be your hint as to which version you're using. So I'm going to rewrite it just so I know. I'm going to plug into that first version. And literally when I say plug in, just put your numbers in. That's it. So I don't know what A is, right? That's what I'm solving for. Leave it as a squared though, don't forget the squareds. And then just start plugging the numbers. Oh, I know B, that's 3, so that would be 3 squared. I know C, that's 4. And then it's minus, it's always a 2, and then you put B and C in again, so that would be 3 and 4 again. And then last but not least, you do times cosine, and we'll plug in that 41 degrees. All right. We're like 90% done, so that wasn't even bad, because the last thing you have to do is just plug this into a calculator. So I grabbed mine. I'm just going to do it kind of all in one step, because that's calculators do that for me, so that's delightful. So I grabbed my calculator, and I'm going to do 3 squared, I'm just throwing them right in the order, plus 4 squared, minus 2 times 3 times 4, times cosine of 41. Okay? So I'm just kind of going right in order, plugging in exactly how it looks, just putting it in my calculator. And I get a big old decimal, so I'm just going to round it. It's like 6.89. I just go out a few decimal places. 2 or 3 is fine. Now I'm not done. There is one extra step, and the extra step is because I want to find A, but this is A squared. So if we ever want to get rid of a squared, we take the square root. Anytime you want to cancel a square, the opposite is square root. So write in my calculator, the square root of 6.89 is 2.62. There you go. And that would be in yards. And then, my friends, you would be done. If you round a little differently, that's fine. So if yours is off a little, you're like, oh, sometimes it's just, some people's calculators go out a few more decimal places. So if you're off a little bit, I would totally give you full credit. But I kind of like these because there's not too much heavy lifting. Take your numbers, put them in, throw them in a calculator, take the square root, you're done. So it's nice. You don't have to kind of rearrange anything, move anything around, worry about, some other stuff. So hopefully that isn't too terrible. If you haven't realized yet, Trig is just a whole lot of plugging into formulas. So once you get a formula and you can plug into it, you're pretty much good. That's about it. So today we'll just kind of focus on that. There's obviously some other stuff we can do. We could solve for the whole triangle, so we could go back and say, ooh, I want to find other sides or other angles. The tricky one, and we'll save that one for a little bit, is when you have to find an angle as the first step, you have to do a lot of rearranging. So I'll show it to you later. But for today, our intro day, we always try to ease into it. The main goal of today is have some information, plug it into a formula, use your calculator, and you're pretty much done. So I'll just give people a second. I know at home it usually takes a minute or two extra to write it. And so always feel free, if you do need more time, I'll start the next one in a few seconds. You let me know. Oh, my goodness gracious. On that page, all right. Okay, so that one we were solving for side A, so we're just going to look at kind of 2 other examples. You can probably guess one we're going to solve for side B, one we're going to solve for side C, just so we do use the other versions. And we kind of get used to like which one do I choose and why. When that's done, you guys will try one. We'll see where we stand. We might do one other thing after that, but that's about as crazy as it'll get today. And we will go from there. Whew, okay. Good stuff, good stuff. You guys emit so much energy to me in the mornings. I swear you guys are the reason I'm actually tired. You guys are always so tired. Okay, so this one I'm going to say find side C. I'm going to tell you that angle C is 28 degrees. Side B is 6 inches. and side A is 4 inches. So once again, it's all just about kind of thinking. I always just look, what angle do I have? That's usually the biggest hint you can take. I have angle C, and the only version that has angle C is this third version. So this is the one I'm gonna have to use. So it's all about just pick them depending on what you got. So I'm gonna pick that third version. All right. I like to rewrite it. I find that if not, I tend to just start throwing things in random spots. Because then I can just plug in and I see where everything goes nicely. Once again, I don't know side C, so that's gonna stay as a variable, but everything else I should be able to plug in for. So I'm just gonna start to plug in. A is 4. Make sure you don't forget it's 4 squared. So just little things like that, just forgetting notation. Mess you up. Plus, B is 6. We're gonna square that. Minus 2 times 4 times 6. Okay, so it's kind of funky because you put A and B in twice, but it's fine. And then times cosine of 28 degrees. You've done most of the work. Most of the work was just like, where do the numbers go? Because now I'm just going to put that in my calculator and see what the heck I get. Please make sure you actually can plug it in. So when you're here, you can always borrow a calculator. When you're at home, you have that Desmo scientific one I put the link up for. You can try it in there. Or do something. Because I know I'm just going to give you the answer in a second, but I'm not always going to be there to give you the answer, guys. Let me just make sure I plug that in right. 4 squared plus 6 squared minus 2 times 4 times 6 times cosine 28. I got about 9.62. Well, remember, that's not my answer. And I feel like some people would say, well, that kind of makes sense. 6, 4. No, make sure you take the square root. Oops. Oh my gosh, what did I do? The square root of that answer is about 3.1. I got a little ahead of myself there, inches. So please just make sure that last step of taking the square root is an important one, because that's what gives you your final answer. Woo! Sorry, that's a 3.1. I got a little aggressive there. I'm just looking at the schedule. Oh, you guys, that picture thing's next week, not this week. Plan something for Wednesday. We'll do a St. Patrick's Day.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Yeah, go ahead. All right, we're gonna do one more. You can probably guess. We use kind of the first version. We use the third version. We'll probably do one more. We do the second, just so you can see. They're all really the same. And then you'll try one, and then we might do one more quick thing. We'll see what the time is after. Ooh. So I always just give you an extra few seconds. Okay, so the last one we'll do together. Just a little more info, and then we'll try to solve for a missing part. And then we'll kind of see what magic happens here. All right, so here's our problem. Ooh, using one. This one we're gonna find side B. And we're gonna say that angle B is 55 degrees. Side A is 90 centimeters. Side C is 100 centimeters. Okay. And I just like a little quick internal conversation. I have angle B. The only formula that has angle B is the middle one, so that's the one I'm using. So I like to rewrite it just to remind myself what I'm plugging in and where. See, they're all looking pretty similar. Just depends what letters you got. So I'm going to plug in what I know. I don't know what B is, so that would be 90 squared plus 100 squared minus 2 times 90 times 100. So those get plugged in again. And then times cosine of 55. All right, let's see what we got. So I'm grabbing my calc. I have no clue what that comes out to. Obviously, you wouldn't even be able to do that in your head if you wanted to, so you always need that technology there. Once again, the phone ones are they're annoying to use when you have to do like more than one step, so try to have something else. Oh, comes out to a big old number, 7,775.62. Obviously, that's not our answer, right? We're not going to have a triangle with side 90, 100, and 7,000. That wouldn't even be a triangle. That wouldn't even make sense. So you need to remember, b squared equals that. Make sure you take the square root. So I'm going to do the square root of that answer. And that comes out to about 88.2, we'll say. That makes a lot more sense for those numbers. And that would be your final answer. Very good. Got it. All right. Give me another minute. I'm going to have you guys try one. And then we'll kind of see, we'll have a little bit of extra time, so we'll see timing wise. We might do one other thing after. Depending on what we got here. We're seeing, that's good. Okay, on my brain this morning. Gotta organize that. Oh, let me on. Oh, I hate daylight savings so much. I hate it. Okay. What am I going to give you? Okay, that one's beautiful. Let me give you this one. You are trying this one on your lonesome. So which would you choose? Can you plug into it? Can you find a final answer? I'll give you a few and then we'll kind of regroup after and see. We might do one other thing. I haven't done this one yet though. Let's see. B equals 9 meters. All right, so to the best of your ability, given that information, what version would you use? That's the first thing. Once you have that version, can you plug in what you know? And then once you plug in what you know, can you, once again, 99% of it is your calculator, can you throw it in your calculator and try to find what you do not know, which is side C. Can you guys please try that now? I'll give you a few minutes. Let me know if you have any questions along the way. I'll be happy to help you. Oh, sorry. Attendance. No. All right, one more minute, we'll go over that one. Oh, no, that wasn't that one, I saw you after that. Let's go over that one, then there was something I wanted to update you on, then I'll just see time-wise. I don't know when you guys get ahead of my other class, it freaks me out, and I always have less time to do announcements and such as life. I'm sure you'll be devastated if you have a few minutes that you can hang out, but. Let's just go over this, because why not? We did it, we might as well see if you did it right. See if there's any questions. There was one thing, we had a staff meeting last week, and I wanted to update you guys on one of the answers, the question that came up, because it might directly affect you. And then we'll go from there. So, my friends, I just look, I have angle C, I need to use the third version, which I just awkwardly half erased. So I like to rewrite it, especially, as we move forward. We'll refer back to those originals, but it's always nice with your specific problem, like what am I using here? There we go. We're gonna plug in what we know. So we know side A is 7, we know side B is 9, and then we throw A and B back in, so just make sure they go in twice, but make sure you don't forget those squares with those first two. And then that's times cosine of 46. That's degrees. Oops, I need an equal there. So I just grabbed my calculator. Right, none of this you'd ever do in your head. Plus 9 squared, oops. Minus 2 times 7 times 9. Times cosine of 46 degrees. And c squared, my friends, is going to equal 42.47. I'm going to take the square root of each side, because 42 doesn't make sense with those numbers. Always need that square root. And your final answer, please check if you got there, should be about 6.5, and that would be a meters. So wow. Excuse me. So take a second to check that, because it's always nice to do, well, I don't know if you guys think it's nice to do work on your own, but it gives you a sense of, do you know what you're doing? And then when you check it, that even gives you a bigger sense, did you actually do it correct? And if you didn't, you just write it down. All right. So I'll leave that up for a second. I'm just going to turn my screen off. Actually, I was going to say I need to go outside, but it's 18 degrees out, so I'm not going to go outside. Never mind. Need some fresh air. My lungs. All right. I'm going to pause this.